If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard in Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Pro WrestleZone podcast. This is the Professor Rick Del Santo, and joining me, returning to the Pro WrestleZone podcast, is the Guardian of Chaos, Big Daddy. What's going on, sir?
Professor, thanks for having me here on PWZ. I'm looking forward to it.
As am I. Today, this week, we're going to be discussing the world of professional wrestling. Lots of different topics. It's a very big week. Survivor Series is this Sunday. The Undertaker is celebrating his 30th year in the World Wrestling Entertainment, World Wrestling Federation, and looks like he's retiring. And they're supposed to be doing this very special celebration for him on Sunday.
Well, as we speak, Professor, we're here on a Wednesday night, and we know it's usually Wednesday Night Wars. So right now, AEW Dynamite and NXT are both on while we're here on PWZ, and we'll get into the World Wrestling Entertainment again. I appreciate you bringing me in as a part of your panel on the PWZ. I see the DVD freak on here. I see the Beast on here. You guys have a plethora of hosts, and you guys are doing a good job at PWZ. So I want to get that out of the way first.
I appreciate that.
Appreciate you being on here. And what I just saw, Professor, on AEW Dynamite, and I know you asked about 30 years in the Undertaker, and we'll get onto that briefly. But as I look over here on the side right now, too, I have a couple of screens going on at once. AEW and the Inner Circle and MJF and Wardlow just did a parody on the Hangover classic movies with Bradley Cooper, and it was unbelievable, just like they did at the steak dinner on AEW Dynamite, where they did the Frank Sinatra cabaret rendition. And now tonight, just before we hit the air, they're doing a tribute to the Hangover. And I get it's not a lot of shtick for the people. I understand they want pure wrestling, and that's what I like. I'm old school. We like keeping it in the ring, but I will say they're keeping it and thinking out of the box, Tony Khan and AEW. And this is just like prime time back in the WWF days and Tuesday Night Titans. Yeah. I enjoy this part of wrestling besides the technical ability in the ring, Professor. Your thoughts? I know you haven't seen AEW yet.
Not yet. I got stuck watching MLW. For the first, I started it late, so I missed the AEW. I will catch it probably tonight after we're done here. My thoughts on that is that, I am very much a traditionalist. I like it built on sport. That's why I go with organizations such as New Japan and Ring of Honor and MLW. I do enjoy AEW quite a bit. The comedic bits I could do without, but there definitely seems to be an audience. There definitely seems to be an audience for that, though. So.
Well, the only reason I say that, Professor, and I agree with you when it comes to New Japan and Impact and Ring of Honor and MLW, and hopefully NWA will come back, all the much-needed viable alternatives here in the world of pro wrestling. And you could even throw on what's coming up, and I'm sure we'll discuss it with the NAWA, the North American Wrestling Alliance. And then we can even cover what's going on locally here in the historical, classical WWE territory of New Haven County. We could even talk some Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. But since we're rolled back to phase 2 in the COVID pandemic here, Paradise Alley right now has ceased operations going into the holidays. And so we'll have to wait and see. But we can cover all that. But I agree with you to tie this up with a little bow about the technical aspects and the other groups that keep it in the ring. But I'm a guy that grew up on a lot of the 70s and into the 80s.
Yeah.
I really enjoy, Professor, the entertainment aspect of pro wrestling. I like it all. Don't get me wrong. like the stuff like you and I talked about in the past, like Joey Ryan and stuff that crosses the line, that disgusting slob. But I do like
Look how far
entertainment.
that got him. Look how far that got him now, and
Well,
is
you know what? It
where
got
he
him a
is now.
payday, Professor. It got him 4 years of paydays, but
Yep.
look where he is now because it was just unprofessional and people go along to get along. But that's another podcast for another story. But I do enjoy AEW doing some of the entertainment like back
Right.
to the day, as I said.
You do need some sort of drama in order to draw the crowd into that match. There's just certain things like Michael Nakazawa with the baby oil. I mean, it's
Again,
over the yeah.
right. I agree with
It's
you on that.
Kenny Omega and the 9-year-old girl or the sex doll. It's out of there. You know, it's not appropriate, and it's not, to me, that's not professional wrestling. Even though Kenny Omega, probably one of the biggest wrestlers in the world today, you know, he has not done anything like that since he's come to wrestling full time in the United States that I've
Well, you
seen.
see what they're trying to do with Omega, and I know we originally started off talking about trying to get into the WWE and Survivor Series and the
Right.
30th anniversary of the Undertaker, but this is ad lib and organic. That's why I appreciate being on PWZ because there's no notes, there's no script, and if we have notes and scripts, 5 minutes in, you don't use half of it anyway.
Right. Definitely. Absolutely.
And I know that the Beast and the DVD Freak do the same thing, and they're usually, maybe sometimes having a beverage
Right.
of choice. But
Oh, of course.
you see what they're Red Solo Cup, as the professor is doing. You
Drinking
see what
coffee.
they're doing, and I just had a cup of coffee myself,
Yeah.
my friend. In AEW, see what they're doing with Omega. You talk about his career in Japan and things that he did over there as compared to
Right.
here in the States and AEW. And to all my fans out there in the Pac Rim and over in Japan and the Orient, konnichiwa, you see that they're making the Omega and bringing back the aspect of his gimmick as the cleaner. Now, you've
Right.
seen that over the last couple of weeks. Give me your thoughts on the difference between Japan and Omega now and bringing back maybe a more edgier cleaner.
When he first started wrestling here, a year ago when AEW started, I don't think that he was delivering the way that he did in Japan. It was not, I guess, transmitting well or transferring well. And they weren't using him on TV like they did. Like they weren't building him up. They gave him the tag titles, and they just kind of floated around, where they were teaming up with other people or doing whatever. So you really didn't get the full Kenny Omega experience for like a good 7 or 8 months until recently, until he turned, with the Bucks against Page and stuff. So now I think they're really starting to focus on it, and I think they're going to really start pushing towards that.
Well, Omega's been obviously a huge influence, whether it be the Young Bucks,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Cody Rhodes, what AEW's doing. And I like that they're bringing, listen, Kenny Omega, Professor, went from being the number one wrestler in the world when he was in Japan, going up against Tanahashi and his matches with Okada
Yeah. Oh
and
my God.
different
Yeah.
things that he did in Japan. That even went and Pro Wrestling Illustrated, I believe, as the top match of the year. And then you see him come over to AEW. You see him change his whole persona. I believe it was because he was a part of the booking process. Now that maybe AEW, a year into it, they're branching out into different things and different aspects. The company has grown. So Omega may be taking a step back, and now he can have a little bit more creativity in his own character. And I
Right.
believe that's why they're bringing back the edgier, the cleaner. And I like that. You see, he comes out
Mm-hmm.
now with the ladies with the brooms, and Justin Roberts is introducing him the way a resume second to none, as if he's the best grappler in the world. So I like where that's going with Omega and AEW. I really do.
Yeah. I have to agree with you on that. I do agree that it is definitely going in a good direction for him, and maybe he'll have a really good singles run in the United States as well as he did in Japan. So
That there's a lot to be said for that. It's a double-edged sword because I could see Cody and the Young Bucks and Kenny not trying to really want to push themselves because they are technically the bookers and a big part of that company. They
right,
started it. I know Tony Khan has become more involved. He's becoming like a younger version of Vince McMahon, but I hear he's very easy to get along with. So I feel that they're going to back off a little bit on that. Omega will come back. And now tonight, I know we haven't talked about it, but it's current. It's on right now. What I like that AEW is doing and what Cody, Young Bucks, and Omega are doing is bringing in independent talent or new talent. Listen, whether it be your Anna Jays or the Amazon Jade they just signed out of AR Fox's school,
Right. Yeah.
a connection with Shaquille O'Neal. And then look tonight, too, because I saw the beginning of it, Professor. The tag team Top Flight, who I don't know a lot about, but they're
Put
two
it on now.
20-year-old kids
Yeah.
against the Young Bucks. So look at the opportunity. And then let's not forget the opportunity of a 19-year veteran, Eddie Kingston. Your thoughts on independent talent and the new stars coming into AEW?
I think what AEW is doing with a lot of these guys is fantastic for the talent and for the industry. A lot of them can't work right now because there's no shows running. The NWA is not technically running shows, so they're bringing in, Thunder Rosa, with Serena Deeb. They're having people like that come in.
I believe that match is tonight.
It was tonight, yeah. Actually, it's on right now, so I just turned it on. Um,
Well,
uh,
maybe we can show off a little bit of your play-by-play skills here, Professor,
well,
live on the
you
PWC.
know, I'm a huge Thunder Rosa fan as well. I think she's phenomenal.
As well.
Yeah. So it was all a big mystery as to where she was going to go when her contract expires next year, but we'll see what happens from the NWA. I like that they brought in guys from MLW because MLW wasn't running shows, so Court Bauer allowed them to work shows for AEW, like Brian Pillman Jr. and I believe there was somebody else I can't think of. The name escapes me right now. But AEW is just really good for the industry. They're helping out people that aren't necessarily able to work dates because there are no shows running.
Well, I like that they're giving an opportunity to different talent because
Right.
just Impact is basically doing the same thing, and hopefully we can touch on some Impact tonight because I feel like we're doing the old Joe Pedicino and Gordon Soley show this week in wrestling,
Right.
and hopefully, Professor, we can get to a little bit of each organization depending on
Yeah.
the time. But again, AEW, whether you're bringing in stars like FTR, who were Dash
Yes.
Wilder, or to bring in Miro, who was Rusev, even back to when Ambrose was Ambrose and now Moxley, all the different legends from Arn to Tully to Jake the Snake, what they're doing and bringing in all these different people from the organizations, I find that to be beyond the edge and cutting right now for what Tony Khan is doing. You're taking, and what AEW is doing now is, whether it be an Orange Cassidy or someone like that, they're making stars, a Ricky Starks, a Darby Allin. AEW is creating and making stars, and that's what the WWE is not doing right now. They're not creating any stars, your Rocks, your Stone Colds, and that's just my opinion, and that's why I appreciate AEW as an old school guy. They're creating different stars, something the WWE has not done in quite some time.
WWE has trouble with that because they don't want any of their stars becoming bigger than the organization itself. They don't want another Cena. They don't want another Rock, a Hogan. So they're keeping all the guys, on their level and trying not to, they want to be able to produce guys on their level and no higher level because they don't want them leaving. They've made that mistake with, having guys like Rock and Cena and Hogan all signed away and making millions upon millions elsewhere in the movie industry or wherever. So, yeah, that's my opinion on that.
What Vince doesn't want, Professor, is anyone
Mm-hmm.
to be bigger than the company. He learned
Mm-hmm.
through Hogan and through Stone Cold and through this and John Cena and through The Rock that once they become bigger than the company, it's hard to keep a control over the character and the aspect.
Right.
That's why to this whole third party thing right now, whether it be Twitch and cameos and different things, I believe that's why Vince is putting his thumb down on all the talent. It's supposed to be independent contractors, but yet you can't make outside money if you use your personal name. That's a whole nother
Right.
conflict for another story. And then we look at what happened with Zelina Vega, who mentioned something, and they'll say it's not connected, mentioned something about unions and getting together and stuff like that. And the very same day she gets released or fired. So there's a
Right.
lot of different things of why the WWE, I believe, is not creating those big stars, and AEW is willing to do that. that's something we could talk about in the future too, is unionization, independent contractors, and all the different things that Vince is trying to do with the WWE. I know we're bouncing all over here on PWZ with AEW, but you know, the hell with the notes
That's
here, Professor.
exactly what happens every week. Um, the other thing is, I want to, with all of this going on, not to mention, they just fired a bunch of guys last week. They fired the whole entire live event department, and now they're stating that they're most likely never going to return to house shows ever again. So, what's your opinion on that?
Professor, I'm glad you brought that up. During this COVID pandemic, it started back on one of our last live events here locally for Paradise Alley on Friday the
Hmm.
13th, back in March, for the Hercules Hernandez Memorial Tournament. And here we are now in mid-November, heading into Thanksgiving and the holidays, and we're still on a lockdown and mask mandates and political election stuff going on still, and nothing being official, and the country's on enraged and very divisive. And what WWE and AEW has done during the pandemic, you have to, and now bring back Impact, and what the other groups are starting to do right
Hmm.
now by picking up. You got to give this sport, this entertainment business, a lot of credit to continue through the pandemic. They have performed without live audiences, and if you know anything about pro wrestling, they feed off the energy, the entertainers.
Absolutely.
So to do this for week after week, month after month, to go through the testing and the trials and tribulations, and staying down there in Florida and being away from your family and friends, we don't know where we're headed into the holidays and into
Yep.
2021, and what's going to open up and what's not going to open up, and if they're going to run live events or minimum capacity. You look at Florida and it's wide open, and I believe it's going to, not to get too political here on PWZ, but I believe this country is going to be broken down into certain areas, on East Coast, West Coast, maybe some down. We're going to be on lockdown, and then if you live in the middle of the country or down south or certain sectors, you're not going to have the mandates and the rules. There's a lot of things coming. I like to keep it light here. We're here for a
Right.
distraction, but we're, as Dusty Rhodes would say, we're living through some hard times, and we don't know what's happening going forward with this country and social justice and the pandemic and live events and sports. So I just want to put it out there that what the product has done, professional wrestling industry, through this pandemic, has been amazing in itself.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that, Professor, because you've been right here with me.
It's been an amazing distraction because it's the one thing that I don't watch many other sports. I do watch hockey, I do watch baseball. I'm not a football fan or basketball fan, so
Oh,
but
who could
professional.
blame you?
I
With all the
mean,
social issues pouring over into
right,
into what's supposed to be our leisure time.
right. Professional wrestling is the sport that I love the most. So the fact that it's never gone away is something that was very good, and it was very distracting during this time. For the last 8 months, there was just a bunch of crap going on. We're not allowed to leave our houses. I'm working from home now, so it's like I'm able to keep up on it more. So I'm able to keep up on, and there's a lot of companies that some companies stopped running, some just continued to create new content. All the independents, like, very few continued. Very few were able to continue. A lot of people started doing online content. Limitless Wrestling out of Maine, they started running studio shows or dojo shows like right away. The only people that were allowed in there to record were the students and the wrestlers. So that was pretty much right when the pandemic started. They just started producing a 1 hour TV show for online streaming. Even Paradise Alley did a lot of stuff for YouTube, and
Right, some empty arena matches,
yeah, yeah,
and they were phenomenal. So you're right, a lot of places were shut down,
yeah.
and speaking, you had just brought it up, and I was thinking about it, was came across my timeline, was part of my notes. Where we started off with AEW and what they're doing now in different aspects, and then we're talking about the pandemic and companies that have shut down and who hasn't been running. Look at Billy Corgan and the
Yeah.
NWA and their whole
Hmm.
studio wrestling. They completely shut down, and now we see that it looks like that Billy has some sort of partnership going on with Tony Khan and AEW, where you see some of the NAW stars and NWA stars, whether it be Thunder Rosa or Serena Deeb, going now and have an agreement and working on AEW. So I like to see that. but what the pandemic has done to all the independent organizations, and I mean the big independent organizations. We can break down professional wrestling as the WWE, AEW, Impact, MLW. Or we'll say that's the major
That's
league.
the bigger tiers. Yeah.
Okay, and then we have the triple A level and the double A level and single A ball and rookie
Right.
ball. Well, from rookie ball to A, all the way up to triple A, this business has been devastated, unbelievably devastated. And the one thing proud about wrestling is not only did it go through the pandemic and keep all of us entertained and made content creators and podcasts that much better, we kept all the social issues and politics out of the world of pro wrestling for the most part, because pro wrestling is a different breed, just as are pro wrestlers and the fans of pro wrestlers and pro wrestling in general. We're a different community, we're a different breed, and the show must go on. So I just wanted to point that out at what I see at NWA and AEW, and I hope the NWA comes back, Professor.
Oh, me too, because that's my absolute favorite. I've loved it since I was a little kid, and the many different organizations. Didn't you do some work with one of the territories in the '90s, the NWA territories, if I remember correctly?
I worked for several different. I worked for
Yeah.
NWA New York, NWA New Jersey,
No.
NWA New England. I
Yep.
worked for NWA Mid South, I believe it was, and for NWA Florida. So I worked for several different NWA territories, and under that banner,
Right.
a lot of great opponents. And that's when Brody was running it. How can I forget his name?
Howard
You had a
Brody,
combination of Howard Brody, Dennis
Dennis
Corluzzo.
Corluzzo.
There were
Yep.
a whole bunch of different people, and then NWA territories, even after the territories broke up, went all over the country. And then, of course,
hmm
here in the mainstay with the Boston bad boy, Tony Rumble, and NWA
Yep.
New England drew in every major star from the world. And I had a
Yeah.
lot of big opportunities with Tony Rumble, God rest his soul.
He was a great guy. Yeah, I was a big fan of his as well back in the day. I grew up watching him on the Savoli's TV. He was something else. He's definitely a character.
IWCCW, I believe, Professor, on
Yep.
Sports Channel or
Yep.
Sportsnet.
Yeah. And then I got it after it left Sports Channel. I ended up catching it on some small UHF channel up until it just went right out of business in '95. So, yeah. But
So
there's,
a lot of different things here, Professor. That's very interesting.
yeah, yeah. It's just, pro wrestling is something that's just it's not a sport that they don't take days off. You know what I mean? You have seasons in every other sport. Baseball, football, basketball, whatever. You go in for a few months and then you take the rest of the year off and then you train. These guys work they would work basically what, 300 days a year?
Absolutely. And if you go out and see the different documentaries,
Yeah.
365 Days or Beyond the Mat, or even the movie with Mickey Rourke, the wrestler, very, very
It's a
true.
good one. Yeah.
All the different movies out there. And you put the nail right on the head, Professor. There is no off season.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you were traveling at 280 to 300 days out of the year. Now, there's still, before the pandemic hit, it was over 200 days a year, plus your personal appearances and volunteer stuff that you have to do for the company and per your contract. There is no off season. Yes, you're not wrestling every day, but the tremendous athletic ability, as you well know, is second to none for any major athletic sport or talent or superstar. And you're right, there is no off season in professional wrestling, no time
Right.
to heal. And there's a lot to be said for that and the athleticism. And that's why people, when they talk about it being scripted and choreographed, until you step in the ring or you're part of the business, take your head out of your ass, please.
I totally hear that. I'm not even in the business, and I'm not. I get a lot of I understand exactly what you're saying. There's a lot of people like that. Think they know more than
Everybody
they know.
thinks they could do it, Professor. Everybody thinks they could do it.
I sure
Everybody
as hell,
wants to do it.
I sure as hell know I can't. I'm not in that shape.
Well, but what you do, Professor, is you're a podcaster, you're an independent journalist, you're a historian, you do a lot of different things on your channel. So I say to a lot of guys out there to provide the service that you provide and that I provide right now as an insider and someone who's in the business and as a fan and as a mark myself, what guys like yourself do and your co-hosts and other podcasts out there is tremendous. Now, listen, I follow JD from Off the Script, the number one guy in the IWC. I follow Don Tony. I follow Joe Cronin. I follow everybody from Cornette to Bischoff, and of course the podcasters of Wrestling with Anything But. If you've gone to
Yep.
that platform on Facebook Live and Twitch, what Avi Klein is doing Mondays and Tuesdays with Breaking the Ice and Glacier Ray Lloyd, Tuesday nights with Bill DeMott at Face Value, Wednesdays Maintaining the Truth with Paul Roma, Thursdays Making Waves with the WWE Hall of Famer Don Morocco, Fridays Road to Recovery with Duke the Dumpster Drosy, Sunday with the Patriot Del Wilkes and Unmasking the Truth is unbelievable. And then at 11 o'clock on Saturday nights, late nights, Avi Klein and his cohorts of hucksters, Howard Collado, Richard Holiday, Mickey Doyle, the legendary grappler from the 70s,
Wow.
Incentive, they all have a show called The Green Room. I'll be on there hopefully this Saturday. So Wrestling with Anything But, and there's 7 days a week, Professor, 10 shows, 11 shows a week live. Where else can you get that? That's why that platform is something, along with the guys that I just mentioned, that are unbelievable. And if you want to get something, and I'd like to throw it out there to people, a lady that's very easy on the eyes, and she's an unbelievable writer and has an unbelievable podcast, and they're also on YouTube, Juliet Miranda and her husband, David, the producer, Bourbon Soaked Live every Monday, talking books and relationships and sex and having a couple of pops.
Where's this? On Facebook?
YouTube.
Oh, YouTube?
Every Monday night, Bourbon Soaked Live with the author Juliet Miranda. And if you follow me on Twitter, she has a podcast, the Unwritable Rant podcast. It's unbelievable stories. She was in the music industry. She's an author. She was behind the scenes rock and roller. Her and her husband. Listen, it's like watching a bunch of swingers from New Orleans, because that's what it really is, entertaining. And it's not always about pro wrestling. So those are the people that I follow. And if the people that follow you, if you could hook up with these people, and then of course for comedy, and these guys are really good. And I know you know who they are. Work in Progress, the Mayor, Wrestle Sketcher, Stevie, the beautiful Erica. A Work in Progress is an unbelievable, entertaining comedic platform. I will say I like those people, and I always like to put over the people that I listen to and that listen to me. Even the infamous, crazy Joe Cronin on a Joe Cronin show. He's got 3 different channels. He's out of his mind, but they have thousands of followers, Professor. Thousands.
Well, I'm trying to get there myself. I'm trying to promote, and that is key. It's just keep up. Don't give up.
Put the content out there. You're right. Hey, listen, you know that recently I was on a national and international platform on the worldwide Patrick Dino Costa show, Patrick Ryan. I was on there for a full year, did over 30 different segments. I'm on a brief hiatus from Chaos Corner on his platform. It's going a different way. I'm very busy now with my schedule. I don't have as much time, but I was on an international platform, all 50 states of 40 foreign countries. I can't thank Dino Costa, a.k.a. Patrick Ryan. And if you go to thedinoshow.com and if you listen to his show, it's not for everyone. It's about social issues. It's very political. It's not a pro wrestling platform. That's why we took a break after a year. And plus with my schedule, I hope to be back because it was a different platform. But I just want to put that out there because I know you were an avid listener and you emailed in all the time to his show. So
you brought pro wrestling to his show. And
I brought a lot of listenership and fans like you to his show, to Patrick Ryan.
And he admitted he was not necessarily a wrestling fan at that time, but over time, listening to you, it kind of grew and stuck with him. I think he started to understand it, a lot more than he would have than growing up not a fan. I think he picked up a book. He was talking about a book that he picked up, right?
You're right about that, Professor. The thing with Dino is he was at the pinnacle in our industry, Professor. He was on Sirius XM for 5 or 6 years. He worked for the Colorado Rockies organization, the Houston Astros. He was on the Madison Square Garden Network. He won Emmys. He hooked me up with the president of the Yes Network, Mr. John J. Filippelli, who's a National Broadcasting Hall of Famer, was a former WWE executive. So I can't thank him enough. But his platform, I brought a lot of attention to it, but it's just that I don't believe Dino, who I love and respect, and not to make this about me, we're on PWZ, but I just wanted to put that statement out there. because I know a lot of your fans listen to that platform. So hopefully I'll be back. It wasn't. I did bring a lot and add a lot to his platform. He brought everybody to my platform. But for now, it's creatively. And again, I couldn't thank him enough to be on the top of the platform like that. So hopefully PWZ and Chaos Corner. Who knows what could happen?
We're always looking to grow, always looking to have
Is that a
fun.
Blue
Bring
Chew reference, Professor?
get the hell.
Maybe we can get a sponsor like Blue Chew. Everybody else has
There
got
you go.
sponsors.
Everybody's got Blue Chew. He's on
Well,
like
speaking of
every
sponsors,
con.
though, Professor, besides Blue Chew, there's my good friend, Mr. Hempel Stilskin, over at sweetheal.com. Now, Professor, fans of the PWZ, fans of the DVD Freak, fans of the Beast, fans of the Guardian of Chaos, if you're not using CBD products, CBD Life, CBD Wellness for all your injuries, it's the wave of the future. Go out and see my boy, Mr. Hempel Stilskin. It's Connecticut owned, Connecticut grown, legally licensed. Support your small entrepreneurs. Sweetheal.com. I'm done with my plug.
That's okay. That's quite all right. It's very welcome here. I'm always a huge supporter in small businesses and the independents. It's very important. It's the backbone of any industry is the independents and small businesses. It definitely is. So what else you got on the table? What else do you have to talk about?
Well, Professor, seeing that this the first time I was on your show, I was honored. It was early on, and it was all about my career. And I've gone back and I've reviewed that, and I appreciate that. This time on, we're bouncing all over the place. That's why I like being on here, because it's unedited, it's unscripted, it's raw,
All
it's
right.
ad lib. There's no edit button here. It's live to tape, as I say. So this is what I enjoy. I'm a big fan of your work,
I
Professor.
appreciate that. Thank you.
You know what I have on over here, and I know you were going to say I appreciate it, and I know that you're a big fan of his, and we'll get back on it because we started off with Survivor Series, The Undertaker. I want to bounce back to what the host of PWZ wanted to talk about. I have the live pro wrestling auction autographs on Facebook Live right now with RF Video. It's got a lot
Oh,
of different
yeah.
different things on here right now. You know who's also on right now? A bunch of different people reviewing AEW Dynamite Live. Eric Bischoff in 83 Weeks is on right now. There's a lot of people that are live broadcasting, but I know that you do a lot of uncratings and unboxings, and you're into a lot of
Yep.
memorabilia. So that's what's on live right now. And then afterwards, once we get off PWZ and we talk about everything here, afterwards, I go to all the live chat rooms and all the live broadcasts.
Yeah.
JD Off the Script will be on live tonight right after Dynamite. Don Tony will be on. Joe Cronin will be on. There's a lot of information and stuff that I learned. Listen, I'm in the over 50 demographic. A lot of stuff I learned from guys like you and PWZ and A Work in Progress and those people that I just mentioned and Wrestling with Anything But. I go to other platforms and podcasts to put other people over and to learn from the business. I could always learn from people, whether you're in the business, not in the business. You may know something that I don't know.
Right.
So I know that you go to RF Video for these live autographs, but pretty interesting stuff. What's going on right now?
I noticed that he's been doing a lot of them. He's been doing a lot lately. I do watch a lot of his. I've never purchased anything from him in a while, in a long time, but I purchase a lot from High Spots, a lot of memorabilia because they end up having their Thursday night auctions and they knock prices down. There's a big Black Friday sale next week, so.
Looking forward to that. Well,
Oh yeah, and JJ Dillon's on tomorrow. He's going to be on their live auction tomorrow, so that's a
look at the Oakleys. I see how I push them down here. I put on the Quarantine 15.
Quarantine 15. I'm going to tell you, I had the Quarantine 30, so I doubled.
So JJ Dillon's going to be on
Yep,
Professor.
I know you. I know you had an interaction with him a number of years back, didn't you? Or at least in the New England Hall of Fame. New England.
More than a few years ago.
Right.
Not only last year, the class of 2019 New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, Joe Bruin's New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. I was inducted last year. J.J. Dillon was there. We had dinner together. He was there with the Four Horsemen. He was there with Barry Windham, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, Paul Roma. So to be inducted and have dinner with the Horsemen and Duke the Dumpster Droese and the Samoan Dynasty and Andrew Anderson, there was just a whole bunch of people there. That was an unbelievable event. in itself. And then JJ inducted Bill Apter from OneWrestling.com, the legendary Bill Apter. I went into the Hall of Fame with him and with Gary Michael Capetta. So it doesn't get much better than that to go into the Hall of Fame with those guys. And then the funny thing is, Professor, and I don't have it around here. I could have showed it. It might be upstairs in the Chaos headquarters because we're down here literally 12 feet below the surface of the earth in the bowels of Chaos Corner. I kid you not. You talk about Joe Rogan and the bunker that he's in doing his podcast. He's got nothing on me here, Professor. 1994, talent relations. I sent all my videos and demos, not only in the late 80s and especially in the early and middle 90s. J.J. Dillon, and we could do this in another podcast at another time. I have the letter from the World Wrestling Federation talent of VP operations director, and that was J.J. Dillon, signed by him personally, saying, we got your stuff. Thank you for your correspondence, and people that are talent that have sent in tapes and tried to get a job. You know what I'm talking about. I even went up to the offices there in Stamford more than one occasion, and was asked to leave on one occasion too, but that's neither here nor there. And I got the letter back, and keep trying. We know who you are, and we know where that led to, not ever signing a contract with the WWE or WWF. I see JJ all those years later at the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. Bring that with me, the letter, because I know that he's going to be there with his writing on it, allegedly. Show it to him the next day at FanFest. He says, he's sitting there next to his daughter doing an autograph session. He said, I never saw that before Chaos. I said, JJ, could you please read this again? He read the whole thing. His daughter's looking at it. She's looking at me. And she's like, I don't know. And he's like, he goes like this. He licks it, puts his thumbprint on it. He signs it. He said, Big Daddy, I'm pretty sure I never saw this letter. Here you go. I said, thank you, JJ. Thank you for signing it. And the night before, in my speech, I had taken it and I had done it in my speech. It's on YouTube at All Access Entertainment. And I took the letter and I said, you see where this got me? Claim rejected, that same letter. And then I saw him the next day and then I threw it up in the air. It was hilarious. So I'm glad you brought that up. So he will be on a virtual signing. I believe, Professor, this is where it's trending. I just watched Tommy Dreamer and Beulah.
I watched that one.
It was a good signing. They're very entertaining. How about Dreamer? Selling her neck brace. He wants to sell a pair of her panties. He wants to sell her shoes that she wore, nail clippings. I mean, I love Dreamer. Listen, I took the Singapore cane from him on more than one occasion. He's a true legend. I love Dreamer. I believe that's where it's going, Professor, the virtual signings, because of the pandemic.
That's another way that a lot of guys kept being able to make money, was through all the virtual stuff. Everything shut down. There was a huge. What's the convention that High Spots runs out? WrestleCon every year.
They run a big convention.
They ended up canceling, but then they had a huge, gigantic 50% off sale on their website for like 2 months, and then they started all the virtual stuff, and then other people started picking up on the virtual stuff, whether it be RF, and everybody's doing it now. It's like a very big thing now, so it's helping a lot of the guys that can't work or go do signings, anywhere right now. It's helping a lot of people.
Well, who's doing virtuals too, and I'm glad you brought that up. That segues me into another group that I follow and that I watch, and they do something for the retired legends, whether it be Mr. USA Tony Atlas or a Party with Marty or Brutus Beefcake and all the young stars. If you watch Boston Wrestling and MWF Dan Murata and my former podcast partner, and that would be Matt the Kid Degnan, who's now known as the Prodigy with Dan Murata, they do a lot of live autograph sessions and virtuals for Tony Atlas, Beefcake, for the stars and legends. And if you've ever seen Tony Atlas's artwork and what he does, so they're also out there on YouTube, and they do a lot of stuff. And Tony sells his artwork to make a living, as you said, Professor, for the people that are having a tough time in the business. Yep. And that's why even referees and ring announcers and people are selling merch now. I did that stuff 35 years ago. I was way ahead of the curve, Professor.
Yeah, a lot of people. I saw, speaking of referees, you're right. Mike Chioda is selling stuff. He's a legendary ref. What's the other guy? Jimmy Corderas has a podcast now. All these guys are just trying to keep busy because they can't necessarily work, or some of them have lost their jobs with the major companies, and they have nothing else to do basically. So it's a very crazy time, but there's definitely people that are hustling to try to keep you know funds coming in and trying to keep busy as well on top of it, and
Well,
that's a good
speaking
thing.
of referees, one of my favorite referees from the Zebras of Justice, and I have one of his T-shirts, and that would be my boy El Gallo Tres Huevos, El Ref. 1, 2, 3 means that I just pinned your ass and counted your ass out. So I do have El Ref's
I've got one of
shirt.
those.
How about
I've
that?
got.
How about you and I both? Speaking of marks, you and I both have promotional items and T-shirts from professional wrestling referees. How bad does
Yep.
that make us?
I always love to support my friends as well and the independents. So I always buy merch anytime I go to indie shows because I just like supporting people. You know what I mean? Keep it going. That's one of the things. It's very important to support these guys.
I agree with that, Professor. I'm going to take a quick break here, and
Sure.
then I'm going to throw out the lineup to you since you weren't caught up on it, and you asked me originally. I don't know how many minutes in we are here, but you asked me originally. I'm going to throw down the Survivor Series lineup, and seeing that
Sure.
it's your show on PWZ, I want to hear what you have to say because you follow WWE much closer than I do.
All right, we're back here on the PWZ. It's the Professor Rick Del Santo in the Guardian of Chaos, New England Professional Wrestling Hall of Famer, Big Daddy.
Well, Professor, I want to correct you on that. Just like I used to do when I was an in-ring performer, I am not just a class of 2019 New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer, Professor. I want to correct your crowd out there. And I usually never become this vociferous or this cantankerous. Yes, I am a college graduate. I am a two-time Hall of Famer, rumored to be a three-time Hall of Famer. Not only am I in the class of 2019 New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, I was inducted recently to the class of 2020 Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. So let's get it straight. Now I know why, Professor, you don't work for the World Wrestling Entertainment or why you don't work for AEW because you suck. That's why. It's kayfabe. It's a work, baby. That's what I used to say to all the ring announcers.
Wow.
Go to my YouTube and my media pages, my and Twitter. Listen, I'm on Parlor, I'm on Gab, I'm on Rumble, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. The Guardian of Chaos at Big Daddy GOC. Hit the profile link. You'll go over to YouTube and you'll see all the different videos and monikers. And what I just did to my good friend, the professor, is what I did to everybody from AEW star Justin Roberts to WWF legend Frank Krasnowski and everybody in between from Bill Alfonso to Jim Cornette to Captain Lou. The same line I just said to you, Professor. So that was a little. I went from the Guardian of Chaos, Big Daddy, out of gimmick to the GOC in gimmick. It's a work, baby.
I remember the GOC many years growing up watching the GOC.
Well, I
So,
appreciate that. And again, it's great to be back here on PWZ. I appreciate it. A big shout out for letting me come in on the rotation to the DVD Freak and my boy, the Beast. So it's good to be here with the professor. And we started off about 40 or 45 minutes ago, I believe, Professor, on part one with 30-year anniversary coming up of The Undertaker and leading into Survivor Series. We talked about everything from AEW and everything but the WWE. So I would like to talk about 30 years of The Undertaker and what's coming up on Survivor Series for the fans out there that want to follow the WWE, and let's maybe we could break down some of the matchups. It's going to be basically title versus title at Survivor Series.
yeah, I guess I did not see Raw Monday. It was
You didn't miss anything.
that's what I hear. However, everybody's like, "Oh, it's the best episode they've done in a while." But of course, Brian Alvarez is always just like, "Oh, this is supposed to be a go home show. This is nothing compared to the older go home shows." It's always the week before a pay per view that's supposed to be the best show uh, that
Traditionally,
happens traditionally, and apparently this one didn't deliver. But I understand Drew McIntyre won the title back from Randy Orton, which I don't understand why they took it off him for what, a month or two to begin with. I thought that he had a lot of good steam going, Drew McIntyre, and he's not really getting a fair chance as their head guy and their champion. There's no crowds. He's not getting a full reaction. He's not getting that full experience. Vince and the boys and everybody's just not getting to see how it can be the face of that company with that belt. And personally, and that's how I feel. And it just made no sense to take that belt off of him just for that couple weeks, just to put it back on him. And now it's going to be Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, title versus title. Is it title versus title, or are they just facing each other? It's supposed to be
No,
title versus.
it is title as we go. I got this on my timeline right before we came on air for PWZ. You're right about McIntyre. The transition, I really don't understand what they're doing creatively. I don't understand what Pritchard's doing. I know Vince will fly in at 7:30 for an 8 o'clock show and approve the script and change the whole thing. So it's total chaos what's going on in Raw and SmackDown.
He's been doing that for years, though, showing up and
more now than
yeah.
ever. From what, listen, I have a lot of sources, yeah. Professor. I have so many sources. I have to outsource all my sources. You're one of my sources. So he's doing it more now than ever, and I couldn't agree with you more. Second reign for McIntyre, but it's his second reign during the pandemic. Drew McIntyre has not won or wrestled or defended or lost the WWE Championship in front of a live crowd. He is the pandemic era champion, and I think the energy that he would have gotten from a live crowd, the momentum he was building up from his incident with Brock Lesnar at the Rumble and what was going on with McIntyre, he never really got a fair chance. And then to transition it to Orton, what are they trying to pad Orton's numbers so he can catch Cena and Ric Flair? He's the 14-time champion now. I mean, right. I wonder where they're coming from creatively, Professor.
I have no idea sometimes what they're thinking. That's why I just really haven't, I'll watch it, I'm not going to lie, but I will skip through a lot of the segments because what they're doing these days in 2020, even 2019 and 2018 has been very difficult to watch. A lot of the product.
They have difficult for 10 years, Professor.
Well, there's that too. It's just, they have a lot of really great people on the roster, a lot of great athletes on the roster.
It's the best roster in the world.
It's the creativity that is just, it's lacking. And it's just, and I hate to say it, he's a crazy old man running that company. And I hate to be one of those guys that's saying it just like everybody else, but he's out of touch with what the fans actually want. He does not pay attention to what the fans actually want. They're buying this merchandise. He's going to try to sell this merchandise instead. It's very mind-boggling because he doesn't seem to care about trying to make money the proper way, and it's all over the place. It's
funny. It's funny, Professor, that you should bring up making money, and this is why he doesn't change. As long as the fans continue to buy this, and as long as the third and fourth quarter, the second and third quarter earnings, and the shareholders and the stocks continue to rise, and you're getting the money from Fox and NBC Sports and from Saudi Arabia. He's made more money, and his stocks have risen during the pandemic than he was previous to the pandemic. So why should he change anything, Professor? I agree with what you're saying, and that leads us into it's Drew versus Roman Reigns for the titles, the Universal and WWE titles. That will be your main event at Survivor Series. Could you imagine coming off the storyline from SmackDown, the tribal chief and the Samoan legacy and the Samoan dynasty with Heyman being involved, if there were live crowds? Now, SmackDown's a big organization. It's a big company. It's one of the majors. That's why no matter what you put on there for a product, they're going to draw over 2 million people, even during the pandemic. But could you imagine if there was a live crowd, even with the shit creative product that the WWE is putting out, for what's happening with the Samoan legacy? And I thought that story was over the top. And now Drew versus Roman at Survivor Series for the titles. You break that down for me.
Drew versus Roman?
Drew versus Roman.
What I think is going to happen, personally, and I've heard somebody else say this as well, and I definitely agree. Miz is going to it's going to end up being a 3-way. It's going to end up being Miz holds the Money in the Bank briefcase. He's going to come in and say he's cashing it in, and then it's going to end up being a three-way. This way, they don't have to find a way to change either of the titles, the SmackDown or the World title, the WWE title, and Miz will be there and take the pin. That's it. That's my personal breakdown of that match, and that's exactly what I'm expecting to see.
I have heard that through other social media platforms that they think it's going to be a three-way, but some people thought
Yeah.
that Randy Orton was going to be involved somehow. And I said, well, that doesn't work. Uh, they're trying to pad his numbers, but that doesn't work. And Miz is the
Right.
Money in the Bank. I just don't like the Miz's character getting involved with Drew and Roman, and I don't think it should happen. But creatively, what you're saying makes sense because then neither one of them have to lose the
Right.
titles. So
Unless it just ends up in a double disqualification or a double countout. So that's they're not going to put both titles on one of the guys. That's just not. It's not going to happen in 2020 because they're not. That means they'd end up having to combine both the rosters, the SmackDown and the Raw roster.
can you believe that you and I are even talking about the WWE?
No, because
I
I never
always have
talk
it on
about
in the
it.
background, or I'll
Yeah,
DVR it and go through it, or I'll
fast
listen
forward
to
it.
one of the podcasts and I'll catch up on it. But how funny is this?
I usually, I usually hear about it on Busted Open mostly. Or you're frozen. Damn. There.
Your opinion, Professor, on another title versus title coming out of Survivor Series. Raw champion Asuka taking on SmackDown champion Sasha. Both women, to me, are in the top five female grapplers in the world, without a doubt, especially Asuka. They have literally carried the roster of the WWE through the pandemic. Your thoughts on Asuka, Sasha for the titles?
I have no idea what's going to happen in that. I really haven't. Asuka is one of my favorite women wrestlers today. I think she's phenomenal. Sasha Banks is very good too. Actually, at the last pay per view, was the last pay per view? Her and Bailey, Sasha and Bailey, had the best match on the card. Personal opinion. I was not sold on the rest of the show, you know, but I thought that Sasha and Bailey had a phenomenal match, which is surprising because I've never been one to say the women have the best match on the show. But it truly was. They really dug deep with the weapons and all that other stuff. And I just have a feeling that I don't know. I really don't know how it's going to happen. Maybe there's going to be some sort of screw job. I have no idea. I just
Well,
can't. I
it's
can't really
funny that
picture
you
it.
should say that. About not being quite sure, because I can say the same thing. I was on Busted Open with Mark Henry last week or 2 weeks ago, before one of the last big events for the WWE, where I said only one title would change hands, or none of the titles would change hands, or I was wrong
Right.
on every different prediction. Here's a scripted, choreographed pro wrestling entertainment, but because they don't use wrestling people from the business to do their creative, you can't even make a prediction on an outcome that's already predetermined. So when it
Right.
comes to Drew and McIntyre and Roman Reigns, I have to agree with you. I'm not sure how it's going to turn its way out, whether it's going to be a three-way. When it comes to Asuka and Sasha, two incredible athletes, how do you
Yeah.
creatively, if you're the WWE, write your way out of this? I know what I would do.
Right.
Okay, I personally think Asuka should take it because I believe she's the best, but WWE is leaning towards Sasha. It
She's
probably won't be
immensely.
anything clean. You're probably right, Professor.
Yeah.
Probably won't be anything clean for either one of those titles.
And Sasha's immensely popular right now as well. I mean, not that she hasn't been, but right now it seems like
Well,
she's
dude,
just.
she's easy
Uh,
on the eyes.
there's that too. Yeah, but I mean, her just turning babyface, and it seems like it's really hard to tell when there's no people in the crowd other than the freaking that stupid Thunderdome thing. That it's really hard to
I've been in the Thunderdome,
have you
Professor.
really?
I've been in there 2 or 3 times. I've been in the
Did
Thunderdome.
you get booted out?
Glasses. Listen, let me tell you something about the Thunderdome if you haven't been in there. I've been in the Thunderdome about 3 times, Raw and SmackDown. Briefly, 10 minutes here, 15 minutes here. They put you on a timer. But what they do is they tell you when you're going to commercial break, when you're coming back, who to
Hmm.
boo for, when to cheer. They're coaching you on your phone. And that's what it's all about, the Thunderdome. Listen, whether it's America's Funniest Home Videos or Judge Judy or the WWE Thunderdome, it's all gone virtual. And listen, again, not to bring up all this on the podcast about social justice and where we're going politically and the pandemic and all that different stuff, but it's current products and current events that are affecting everyday life as we're talking right here. So
Everything is doing that right now, from morning talk shows after the news.
right.
It's all virtual. Even the game shows, Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune, all that stuff. It's all virtual now. Or with WWE, you have all that Thunderdome stuff, but it's all the crowd noises piped in,
I don't
and
like it. I didn't like
I
it
can't.
in all the other sports. It's too fake for me. I don't
Hmm.
like it. It's like watching a game show and they put in the laugh button. I didn't
Exactly.
like it. I want it to be real. Speaking of
Yeah.
real, listen, my little friend here fell off, and I know we're a rated PG product, and if my wife sees this, she'll
PG.
get really upset. But yeah, well, she's just hanging around, but I'll put her off to the side. Let's put her off to the side.
Well, you haven't
Another
heard the.
title versus title, Professor, so we can
Yep.
get through the Survivor Series. So the fans in the crowd here don't fall
They'll be
asleep, and you
satisfied.
either. Your thoughts on the U.S. champion Bobby Lashley against the IC champion Sami Zayn? Listen, we know Lashley's a Greek statue. He's never been used the right way. He doesn't have the charisma. And we know that Sami Zayn is very underrated, quite the grappler. I say some people say underrated. I say people overrate him a little bit too much, kind of
Sammy?
like they overrate Dolph Ziggler. I believe Dolph Ziggler and Sami Zayn become a little overrated, but I could see how people say they're underrated. It's a little oxymoron here. I'm as confused as a baby at Hooters, but take it from here, Professor.
Before we get into that, when I'm going to comment on your Ziggler comment, I think he oversells, and that's the thing that, Mr. Perfect oversold, but he oversells the way Mr. Perfect oversold, but like times 100.
But Mr.
You know what I
Perfect
mean? But Mr.
twice the presence and charisma I believe that Dolph Ziggler does, and the
Yes,
gimmick of Mr. Perfect. As I put
exactly.
this back on, because this is how our lives are here in 2020. We're all wrapped in chains, and if you're familiar with my background, you know that this is very apropos that I'd be surrounded and wrapped by chains. But I agree with what you're saying, Professor.
And I like Sami Zayn a lot. As far as overrated,
Underrated or overrated? Your
I don't
opinion.
I don't want to. I don't think he's used enough. I think the way he cuts promos and his interview time, he's hilarious. He's always on the money. Um, I just don't think he's the Intercontinental Champion, so obviously they believe in him in something. But I
He's
just feel like
entertaining as hell.
he is very
I'll give him
entertaining.
that.
He's very
He's a
entertaining.
great athlete. I can't take that away.
I'm not going to say he's overrated. I don't think he's overrated because I just don't think they use him really as much. And he had just a bunch of months off too in the beginning of the pandemic. So I don't know. I'd have to freshen up
Well,
again
he
to
walked
see.
away. He
Yeah.
walked away. They didn't give him time off. Zayn chose to walk away, and that got him in some hot water. And the reason why I say overrated, I'm not saying the WWE uses him as being overrated, but I listen to all these smart
With
marks and
fans.
people,
Yeah.
and everyone's saying how great he is, and I respect his talent, but I just don't see in his charisma and personality, for as good he's in the stick as he is on the stick and in the ring, I don't see him
Yeah.
as a top tier talent. That's just my scouting ability.
I think definitely down the road, he has the makings of a really good mouthpiece.
So
Uh,
who do you like, Zayn or
yeah,
Lashley? You know
I
that
think I
Lashley's a
think
part of the
how
hurt
this
business.
I think how this match is going to go is Lashley's a million times bigger than him. It's just going to end up being probably a squash. I would have to say that's just personal opinion or close to it.
You think that Lashley is going to squash the IC champion? Again, I don't understand why they're putting all titles versus titles
Uh,
because this isn't your
no idea.
traditional what we grew up on as one of the solid home base four of pay-per-views that
No,
WWE had.
no,
Bring a SummerSlam, WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, and Survivor Series. Am I
right.
correct? Those were the original four,
The big
big
four.
four.
Yeah, those are the only ones I really pay attention to every year now. Because there's so many. There's so much content that WWE puts out.
So
I
what?
could
So
really.
back to but
I
Professor,
just think that
you're
Lashley's gonna.
avoiding the question here. You're avoiding the
I think
question.
Lashley's gonna win, and I think he's probably gonna kick the crap out of Sami Zayn, literally.
You see the Hurt Business being involved,
Yeah,
and we'll get onto that because
why not?
we're talking about Monday
I'm
Night
sure.
Raw.
Yeah, I'm sure that they're definitely gonna get involved. I mean, that's just what they do.
Well,
They're just
they were on Monday Night Raw, okay, the other
yeah.
night, and Cedric Alexander did 3 or 4 suicide dives, one after another, in and
I
out.
did see
It was
that.
the most disgusting, disturbing, non-professional thing,
Yeah.
dangerous thing, sloppy I've ever seen in my life.
Well, he
And this
missed
is what the
two.
wrestlers in 2021 do with all the flip-flop,
Yeah.
high-risk maneuvers, false finishes. There'll be no longevity with these guys. They're constantly hurting themselves and hurting other wrestlers, and you're supposed to trust your life with these guys and what they're doing to prove a point, and especially with no live crowd. I just don't understand that as an old school guy. I just don't.
With those 4 dives, those suicide dives, he missed 2 of them. If you saw one of them, he went right into the railing and just went right over. Was it Sammy, right? Um, Cedric is. I don't want to say he's great or good. He's entertaining when he can be. If he's put up with another cruiserweight and they're just not flipping and flopping constantly 100% of the time, he can have a good quality match. What was it, 2 years ago on the WrestleMania pre-show? He wrestled was it Ali? I thought it was a pretty good match. I thought it was a really good
Oh,
match. But
Ali's another great entertainer, being
oh yeah,
wasted in retribution, and we'll get onto that in a second. But so, I mean, you make valid points. So again, you look at these matchups for Survivor Series, and we'll get into another title versus title. If you notice, neither one of us, whether it be McIntyre and Reigns, Asuka and Sasha, Lashley and Sami Zayn, and now the Raw Tag Team Champions New Day against the SmackDown Champions Street Profits, title versus title, you've noticed that neither one of us have been pinned down, so to speak, a pun intended, with a prediction. New Day and
this
Street
match.
Profits.
Well, here's another one. I don't care about this match. I'm sorry. I'm not convinced. I think the New Day have had their run. You know, um, it looks Street Profits is just a comedy act in my eyes. I find them extremely annoying. I'm not convinced with that them as a tag team and being tag team champions. I didn't like them when they're in NXT. I mean, a lot of people liked them. They could put on some decent matches, but coming up right to the main roster, they were ruined. I mean, I didn't like them that much in NXT. When they came up to the main roster, they were made worse. Personal opinion. I'm just not looking forward to that match by any stretch. And that's a
The
WWE show.
WWE, Professor, and I
Yeah,
apologize. I know I cut you off a couple of times.
that's
That's what the
quite all
dirty
right.
FAI does. That's apparently what people say. The WWE in general does not take tag team wrestling or its tag team division seriously.
Right.
And that's the problem of why your opinion matters as a fan,
It's a
as the other side.
sideshow. It's a
Who
sideshow. Yeah,
cares?
it's a sideshow. They're comedians. They just do stupid frat boy humor. It's just when growing up, and then you're not that much older than me, to be honest, by a few years. By me, but grew up when there was tag team wrestling meant something. I always
Well,
look
it was
forward to seeing.
totally different, Professor, back in,
Yeah,
in the
absolutely.
day, back in our era. I mean, it really
Mm-hmm.
was. We could do a whole podcast just about tag
That's
teams
a great
from
tag
the
team.
70s and 80s.
Yeah, I grew up. I could see if I was turning on AWA, I could see the Road Warriors or uh, Gagne and Jim Brunzell. The Freebirds would show up there. They had a run there. Turn to World Class. I could see Midnight Express, the Fantastics. You turn in the NWA, the Rock and Roll Express, and whoever. WWF had a really awesome tag team Division 2 in the '80s. Tag team wrestling today, at least in WWE, there's really nothing crazy. It's
No,
all
you're
based
right,
on
because
comedy,
some of these other organizations have some pretty damn good tag team
Yeah,
divisions, or at
yeah.
least some good tag teams. And so
And I,
we
I,
went through Survivor Series, Rick. Go ahead, your point, Rick.
I just think that WWE made the biggest mistake letting their best tag team leave and go to AEW and FTR. They were an old school team and they knew what they were doing as tag team wrestlers. They reminded me of Tully and Arn, legitimately. Now look who they're working with.
The WWE, I agree with what you're saying. You're dead balls on. That's why PWZ is something that everybody listens to. But the WWE didn't see Dash or Wilder, FTR, if you will, as that type of tag team. So that's
Right.
why they let them go. They didn't care.
Makes no
So, I mean,
sense. Yeah.
I can
It's
understand
senile.
you. Listen, to me, when the Usos, in my opinion, are still one of your top tag teams, it's gotten old. I love them, but you need different tag teams. And New Day's gotten old. They
Right.
split up Heavy Machinery, but so those are the titles versus titles. Let's get into the Survivor Series uh, matchups. And a lot of titles versus title matchups, and again, it could go either way. How are you supposed to understand the creativity? That's why we're bantering it. I hope the fans leave a comment
I hope so. You're there.
or say something
Okay.
professional here. Like, subscribe to this podcast, fans. You're not going to get anything like it. Follow Rick. Where can people follow you on social media?
Well, you can follow me at the Rick Del Santo on Twitter and the Instagram, and now Facebook. PWZ Podcast is there's a new Facebook page. It just went up last week. You got to like it. There's lots of really good information coming out. We're putting up even micro content, such as just little things, and little clips of whatever, DVD reviews and book reviews and all sorts of stuff. Not just covering this stuff. We're just trying to put out as much content as we possibly can and get ourselves out there. So, yeah.
Well, content we'll put out on YouTube, whether it's your audio, your video, your
Yep.
unboxings, your uncratings, your interviews. They're all very entertaining, and we're both growing by leaps and bounds here on both our different channels. And you have some good people on there. So uh, follow, fans. I know I'm on the Professor's show, PWZ, but follow the Professor on all social media platforms because it's very entertaining. It's chaos endorsed, and you know that I have 2,000 followers, and that's without even trying on one platform. Follow me at Guardian of Chaos, at Big Daddy GOC on Twitter. My boys over at the show at Mario_Chaos. They're there to put you over. And if you don't use them to put yourself over, I don't know what you're doing for all you content creators. And of course, now I'm on Parler, YouTube, Rumble, and you see as we go on, the chains are falling off because I'm feeling so good here on PWZ. Back to the Survivor Series matches, Professor.
I got them right here. Yeah. Team
Here's
Raw.
what we have. Break them
Go
down
ahead.
now.
Team Raw, AJ Styles, Keith Lee, Sheamus, Braun Strowman, and Riddle. Not Matthew Riddle, by the way. It's
Not to
Riddle.
be confused with the Joker or the Penguin.
Jesus.
How stupid is that?
Well, now, what are they calling Lars Sullivan just Lars now, right? It's just ridiculous. So Team Raw is taking on Team SmackDown. Kevin Owens, Jey Uso, King Corbin, Seth Rollins, and one to be announced. So, I have a question.
I know you're not really watching the product as intently.
I read about it more than I watch.
Who's going to be the one?
The Undertaker.
To show up for Team SmackDown.
It's The Undertaker. Personal opinion. I'm going to tell you. Do you remember he came
That's
in?
where you think the 30th anniversary celebration is coming in, that he's actually going to get in the ring?
Yes. It's going to be...
Breaking news here on PWZ.
I'm telling you, that's what I'm predicting. Unless something different happens Friday night where they get that fifth member. But if you remember in 1990 when he came in? He was the mystery team member at Ted DiBiase's, which was in Hartford, Connecticut, by the way, about 15 minutes, half hour away from where we live.
Oh, nice little bit of trivia.
Yeah. I remember watching it. I was like, oh, shit, it's me and Mark. So, yeah, I just think that he made his debut as being a mystery partner to Ted DiBiase, that it's very possible that that could happen, unless, like I said, something happens this Friday night, which I will be tuning in Friday night. I got a lot of I have to catch up a lot and prepare because we are definitely covering the product on Sunday. It's going to be a good show, I think. Survivor Series is one of my favorite pay-per-views every year. Hopefully during this pandemic it will actually deliver.
Well, I'm looking forward to the coverage that PWZ puts out there.
Yeah.
I personally, if you were to break it down and look at the rosters from Team SmackDown and Team Raw, listen, Keith Lee, AJ Styles, like you said, Sheamus, Braun Strowman, Matt Riddle, bro, Riddle. I would definitely take the legitimacy and the entertainment value over Team SmackDown. Although I'm a big Kevin Owens fan, I have a connection with the Samoan Dynasty, so I like the Usos. King Corbin, I respect his ability. Not big on him or Seth Rollins, so I see Team Raw going over. And if we get into the win,
Yep.
no edit. But here I can't hit their cough suppressed. That's not what we do here. What are that Team Raw on SmackDown? Is it Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, Lacey Evans, Peyton Royce? Am I back, Professor?
Yep, you're back. You're back. You're back. It's like you said, Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, Lana, Lacey Evans, Peyton
This is
Royce.
what you get here when you go live.
Yeah, right. It's they're taking on Bianca Belair, Ruby Riott, Liv Morgan, and 2 members to be announced. I have no
Which
idea
I don't
who.
understand, Professor. I don't understand. This is, again, creative WWE, what they're doing here. They always had the match cards, especially for the big events, announced and promoted well in advance with
Right.
vignettes and promos. And now, whether it's the men's side, the women's side, there's people that are left out. They're trying to bring in surprises. I like your thoughts on what you said about The Undertaker for his 30th farewell on the Survivor Series. I don't see him getting in the ring, but I do like your idea. Maybe he will. I would love to see it. It would
I mean,
probably save the pay-per-view.
if he comes out there and just choke slam somebody, you know what I mean? He might not come out there and put out a full
There's
15,
no
20
live
minutes.
crowd. How
Yeah,
much is he really going to do? He's going to risk his health and
right.
working with no live crowd.
Either way, pay-per-view revenue, and he's going to get paid really well, and he's going to be under the Legends contract as well. So he could do it. I'm just saying that anything is a possibility. Anything is a possibility, unless something changes tomorrow night. But I think whatchamacallit, our good friend over at Busted Open mentioned that he thinks that it might be the Undertaker as well, Dave LaGreca. I think he might have mentioned that
Well,
yesterday morning.
LaGreca kayfabe in me. You know what I say about Dave LaGreca? Am I allowed to swear on here? I've seen
You're
the
allowed to say whatever the hell you want.
freak and I've seen the beast swear on here. You know what I think about Dave LaGreca? Although I am a LaGreca guy, and I do listen to Busted Open Radio, and he has been kayfabing me for about 2 years now. Fuck Dave LaGreca and the LaGreca head. How about that? Although I still listen, so it doesn't matter
Well,
either way. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to the women's on Survivor Series, again, there's a lot of talent in there. There's a lot of women in there. I really could care less about it. I have to be honest, but I wanted to bring it to the fans and talk about it for content.
right.
So there it is, Rick. I know we went longer than we wanted to, Professor Rick, on Survivor
Thank you.
Series and what's going on in the WWE. And we didn't even get to talk about Slapjack and T-Bar and the Hoopa Chikakoff and Kamana Wanalea and some young guys go and Retribution and all that different stuff. Or how about Bodyguard Jordan? What's your thoughts on him? AJ Styles bodyguard from Underground.
It's supposed to be like Mr. Hughes used to be. He came out, and just
Mr. Hughes. He could be two
cursed.
Mr. Hughes.
Yeah, it's just he's huge. He's humongous, and well, AJ's short as it is. But what's with this? Why does he have a bodyguard? What's going on here?
Well, he had Luke Gallows at one time as a bodyguard, and you're right.
Right.
Right, they're trying to do it like Shawn Michaels had Diesel, aka Kevin Nash, and that's why. Maybe in a future episode you can bring in the rotation with the Freak and with the Beast, and maybe they'll have more thoughts on the WWE because we follow a lot of different products, and I'm not sure why he's a big guy. I'm not sure how he's trained. Your thoughts on Bray Wyatt and Alexa, and I'm not sure what part he'll be at Survivor Series, if at all. Give me your thoughts on the Fiend and Alexa Bliss and where they're going with him.
I have
Listen,
no. I
he's
really have.
been going back and forth with the Miz. We know that.
Right. Yeah. I just have no idea what the hell's going on there. I really don't. It's confusing to me. Why do they bring her into that fold? It's just.
I got to be honest with you.
Just,
Creatively, it's the best thing she's ever done because for as much as she's easy on the eyes, and I
yeah.
get it, before this, Miss Bliss and all
It
that. I know she
was,
had a lot
yeah.
of fans and followers. I didn't see it. I like
Mm.
that she with the Fiend. I
I
got to
think
be honest.
it adds a little bit something. It makes people maybe want to watch a little bit more. Maybe
Well,
it's
at
bringing
least it's a
her
little more creative. What
right.
was she doing beforehand, Professor? Tell
Nothing.
me what. Come
She
on.
hosted a crappy talk show that was boring. Did she held she held the women's tag titles with Nikki Cross, and that just it didn't seem to really do anything or get over. It was just
I didn't like that either.
yeah. I mean, I think Nikki Cross is a very talented young lady. I loved her NXT run when she was in Sanity, right? Yeah, I thought she was really good in there. And then when she came to the main roster, they changed her up. They lightened her up a bit. It wasn't as crazy and screamy and psycho type character. They just kind of made her like the special needs friend to Alexa Bliss. So
Well, seeing that
so to say.
we're talking about the female division, I can't even believe we're doing it. But this is what I like about this.
Yeah,
Give me your thoughts quickly, and we'll get off it. Uh, give me your thoughts quickly on someone else in the female division at the WWE, and who knows what'll happen going into Survivor Series. But she's been put through a table 9 weeks in a row with Nia Jax. This and that. But what your thoughts on Lana in general as a character, and all the way back to when she was with Rusev and the whole Lashley angle? Give the fans your thought. I don't know if you've ever really covered that.
I never really did. Well, I might have spoken about the when she was with Rusev.
9 weeks in a row,
Or
Professor.
yeah, 9 weeks. It's become a running joke. Like, who's getting? Are they mad at her because her husband joined the other company? But they fired him, and he joined the other company, so they got to make her look like an ass because he showed up on somebody else's TV. Uh, or is she on her way out? Like, and that's why they're putting her through a
I don't
table.
think she's
Or
on her
is
way out. I
that's
don't
well,
think she's
it's
on her way out.
you're probably right, but it's like it's definitely a question to hold in that manner to see. But is it all just gonna come around on the pay per view on Sunday? Is it all going to come around? Something's going to actually happen where she ends up putting, the opposite. It ends up putting Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler through a table. Who knows? I didn't like the character with when she was with Bobby Lashley. I just thought that was probably one of the
Yeah,
worst
cross the
things.
line. Cross the
Yeah,
lay
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
what
It
I
was
think
embarrassing
now,
to watch
Professor,
sometimes. Yeah,
right? What I think now with Lana, and then again, I promise we'll get off this. It's the most I've talked about it in 10 years.
it's probably
What
yeah.
I think with Lana is they're just trying to get people now to make to people to fans to feel sorry for her, and they're going to try to change her gimmick. I mean, if they're doing it so outwardly intently with like this, I mean, the business is crazier than I thought it was then too, and
Right.
not that silly. So I just don't know where they're going with. I think it's Philly, foolish and silly. I said Philly because fuck Philly too. But just different things. I'm glad we covered that, and we again, and I'll flip through my notes. But your thoughts on 15 years ago, Latino Heat, Machismo, Eddie Guerrero. Give the fans your thoughts on his career and
Probably
15 years ago on Eddie Guerrero.
one of the greatest that there ever was. Uh, in WCW, WWE, and I remember watching him in AAA. Him and Art Barr tagging up as what the hell was the name?
Now you're
Was it?
going back.
Yeah, yeah. I saw that. Back in the day, I ordered that pay per view when Worlds Collide when him and Art Barr teamed up. And I just thought he was a phenomenal wrestler right from the get go. And I saw him. Damn. Did he? I think he jobbed in WCW too prior to that, like years prior to that, in the later '80s, early '90s, on occasion before really taking off. Latino Heat, Eddie Guerrero's probably one of the greatest that there ever was, next to Chris Benoit. Sorry, but
Oh,
I know.
don't. Sorry, I mean, hey, listen.
Hey,
Uh, the Dems and the extreme leftists, not to be too political, are already trying to take away your freedom of speech, your First Amendment. So you can say whatever you want. You can't take away what Benoit did in the ring, but with the Guerreros, you're
right?
talking about it yourself. I mean, you think about Hector and Mondo and Chavo Jr. and
Yep.
Eddie Guerrero, and for Vicky to be treated like royalty after Eddie's passing, and for her to still be involved in AEW now, and she
Right.
adds a lot to it. I mean, the Guerrero legacy and the Guerrero family. I mean, it's and Eddie himself,
Hmm.
world champion. He rose to the top next to Pedro Morales.
Yep.
Maybe a few others that will slip my mind right now, but those are the first two that come to mind to begin with. Mil Mascaras. I can go on with a few other legendary Latin grapplers, but
Hmm.
on Argentina, Apollo, just unbelievable grappler. So yeah, Eddie Guerrero, 15 years, Professor.
Yeah, and he put on some fantastic. His WWE run, I think, was a phenomenal run. There was a time period that he was just out there and he was killing it. After he struggled with the addictions and all that other stuff, and he came back, and there's he's very well missed. He's very missed.
I liked a lot of his work in WCW. I got to
Yeah,
be honest with you.
him and
I
Malenko.
really did.
Yeah,
And when he was running with, again, like you said, Benoit and Malenko and Jericho and a bunch of other different guys,
can't forget
Guerrero was
ECW. Can't forget his run in ECW as well. His feud with Dean Malenko in ECW as well. The series they had.
unbelievable. Uh, and I know I say that all the time. I say it on my show too on Chaos Corner. Now, Professor, we covered Survivor Series. We spoke about AEW Dynamite. And we spoke about some personal things. Uh, how long in are we here? And we could wrap it up and call it a night. Whatever you want to do here on
45.
PWZ
I
Q and
believe
A. Tell me how far we're in.
we're about 80 minutes in. I think. If I'm adding up right because we've broken it into two parts, so we're good. I'm good. I'm good for another little bit. So,
Well,
what do you?
let's wrap it up, man.
Sure. All right, Big Daddy. Why don't you
Yes.
tell everybody where you can be found? Again.
Oh, I don't want to give away that information. I'm here in the bunker at Chaos Corner. First off, Ricky, I greatly appreciate it. We hooked up last night. We quickly threw this together. We've been meaning to do it for a while.
Oh yeah,
I'm a big fan of your platform and your
I
podcast
appreciate
and the
that.
guys that you have on. And I see good things going forward. What you do is solid for the community, IWC community, and all the different fans out there. And it's a good product. And fans like, subscribe, put PWZ and the Professor into the algorithms. Let's get them out there on YouTube. And you guys can follow me. Like I said, I'm on Parler, I'm on Twitter, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Gab. And if you want to keep you can get away from Google. You can go to DuckDuckGo. If you want to keep your First Amendment rights, you want to go to different platforms at Big Daddy GOC. And the GOC stands for the Guardian of Chaos. Hit the profile link. You'll go over to YouTube where I am Guardian of Chaos. Subscribe, like, follow my boys over at the show. I can't thank Rick enough. And of course, listen to Chaos Corner. I'm live to tape. A lot of things going on. And again, you personally, Ricky, Professor, if you will, no offense, Dusty, God rest your soul. It's a pleasure to be on here, whether it's AEW, WWE, Ring of Honor, New Japan, MLW, Impact, all the different groups you follow, especially the groups on Fight TV, and you're a local supporter of the NAWA and PAPW.
We didn't
Keep
talk the
doing what you're doing.
NAWA. We did not talk the NAWA.
As a matter of fact, we didn't, but we could do. Listen, this is what I want to make an offer to you.
I'm all ears.
I want to make an offer to you, and we could bring whoever you want. It could either be you and I, because PWZ is your platform. It could be you and I and one of the guys. We could do a couple different segments, whatever you want to do. Seeing that we are here now, we're about a week off of Thanksgiving.
It's about
Jingle
3 weeks away,
Brawl,
right? Yep.
right? NAWA Jingle Brawl 2020, December 19th in Daytona Beach at the Ocean Center. It's going to be live on iPay-per-view, and it's going to be on Fight TV. You can order it now for $9.99. Save before the day of when it's $19.99, and we can cover and talk about that. Let's do it, Rick. Before we hit the month of December. I mean, we've already gone right now here long enough for some great content. I can't thank you enough. Let's go watch some Dynamite and some NXT, and we'll hook up and let's cover.
I am definitely all
get
for it.
a NAWA podcast going, and we will cover Jingle Brawl 2020 at the Daytona Beach Center. It's going to be unbelievable with the Godfather, Tony Capone. Listen, unfortunately, I'm not going to be at Jingle Brawl, but I am the current active commissioner for the North American Wrestling Alliance when I took over for Bruno Sammartino, the legendary Slam Jam 99 tour, and I have been now for 20 years. Remember that. Pro Wrestling Insider, Mike Johnson, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, whoever it is, the Godfather, all those other people over there, Lou Reardon, all those marks, everybody that's working. It's a work, baby. Keep faith, man. It's a work. I am the commissioner. And just like until the president is still in office until inauguration, I am still the commissioner of the North American Wrestling Alliance until December 19th and moving forward. Keep an eye out for Chaos Corner. Don't you dare miss it. I'll say that to say this. Thank you, Professor.
It's always a pleasure having you. Thank you, everybody, and check out the Facebook page, PWZ Podcast. Signing off.